Hi, I'm Kristin Omdahl and welcome back to my studio. In this video, I want to show you some tips and tricks for how to make the beautiful Leila lace motif runner. It is such a beautiful accessory to decorate a dresser or some other surface, but in the video, I'm going to show you the magic that happens when you combine two different shaped motifs to create a gorgeous fabric. Let's get started. This exquisite lace fabric is magically transformed when combining two different motifs together. Here you will learn to make a simple lace runner to add old Hollywood glamour to your dresser. Refer to the suggested projects and dimensions to make more than a dozen other fabulous projects like scarves, headbands, evening shawls, and throw. What you will need is 250 yards of No. 1 fingering weight yarn, a size D3 3.25 millimeter crochet hook, yarn needle, and scissors. This beautiful Leila crochet lace runner was made in Be So Fine yarn, 100% bamboo fingering weight yarn shown in color Harbor Fog. And today we'll be using that same yarn in colorway Aloha Blue. Once you download your pattern, you'll see that it comes with written instructions as well as charts and a schematic. Plus, you'll also get information on all the other types of projects and dimensions for making this into larger or smaller projects besides just the table runner. This is the schematic showing you how many of motif A you'll need, how many of motif B you'll need, and how you configure them together to create the beautiful fabric. Next, let's go over how to read the chart. So in this chart, you're going to learn how to create motif A, how to create motif B, how to join motif A to other motif A's, and then how to join motif B in the center of the fabric created when you've joined all of the motif A's together. So we start with the first motif A, and you can see that it shows you all of the rounds to make the motif on its own, and then you'll notice that this says joining on one side of motif A. So the very next one only joins on one side because there's only two motifs. So you'll see that it's joined in these 2 points here. Then there'll be the next motif would also join on one side in 2 points here. And then once you have 3 motifs joined together, you'll have 2 sides that need to be joined for the next motif A. And so it'll join in 2 points on one side, on one motif, and then 2 points on the other motif. And I'm going to show you how to do that with yarn, and then I'll show you how to create a motif B in the center of that fabric. So we'll start by working the last round of a motif A. And so in the chain 5 spaces, we're going to have 5 double crochets, chain 5, and 5 double crochets. So I've done my 5 double crochets. We'll chain 5 and 5 double crochets. Double crochet is yarn over your hook, insert your hook in the space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we'll do 2 more. And single crochet in the next chain 5 space. In the next chain 7 space, we'll work 5 double crochets. Okay, and I'm going to show you on the chart first. So for the last one, we did a 5 double crochet, chain 5, 5 double crochet in the chain 7 space. Then we did single crochet in the chain 5 space. Now to join, actually I'm showing you on the original. So now in order to join them on a one-sided joining motif, we're going to work those 5 double crochets. Then we're going to work chain 2, slip stitch in the adjacent chain 5 space, chain 2, and 5 double crochets. So we've done our 5 double crochets. We're going to chain 2 and grab a finished motif A, slip stitch into the adjacent motifs, chain 5 space. You can either work right into the chain 5 space or into the center chain of the chain 5 space. When I do that, it just gives a tighter join, and then come back to my working motifs, chain 7 space where I'm working all of these stitches. We did 5 double crochet, we did chain 2, slip stitch, chain 2 to count as our chain 5 space, and then we're going to work 5 more double crochets in the same chain 7 space. All of this is spelled out with written instructions in the pattern download as well as in the chart. And then we'll single crochet in the next chain 5 space, and we're going to join in the next point as well. So we'll work in the next chain 7 space, work 5 double crochets, and now instead of a chain 5, we're going to chain 2 and come back to our adjacent motif, and we'll set these down so you can see where we're at. Okay, we're ready to join here. So instead of doing a chain 5, we've done a chain 2, and we'll slip stitch into the center chain of that next chain 5 space, or you could work right in the big space, it doesn't matter. I just suggest that you're consistent whichever way you choose to do it. Slip stitch, chain 2, so that chain 2, slip stitch, chain 2 counts as our chain 5 space, and come back and work 5 double crochets in that same chain 7 space. And we're at the end of our round, so we'll slip stitch to the first stitch at the beginning of the round to join and fasten off. And we now have 2 of motif A joined together on one side. And you'll see that that looks very much like how these motifs look here. So we're going to do that one more time by joining a third motif to these 2 points on this motif. Okay, so we're in the middle of that corner, so we did 5 double crochets, chain 2, and now we want to be 2 points away from the join, and I'll show you that back on here. You want to make sure that you're joining in the correct points of the previous motif. So we joined in these 2 points here, so we're going to be joining in these 2 here, and if you're doing this right-handed, you're working counterclockwise, so you want to make sure you start in one away from the edge to be able to work in the next 2. If you're working left-handed, it would be in the opposite direction. Okay, so we've got our 5 double crochets, chain 2. We'll slip stitch into that next point on the adjacent motif in the center of the chain 5 space, chain 2, then come back to our working motif and finish off that point with 5 more double crochets in the chain 7 space. It always helps to set your work down flat. Notice how I keep setting my work down flat to make sure I know where I'm at. It's always helpful to do that. Single crochet in the next chain 5 space. In the next chain 7 space, we'll work 5 double crochets. And chain 2. Now let's set our work down again and make sure that we're positioned to work in the next point. So we want to work into this point here. So we've got a chain 2, slip stitch into that center chain of the adjacent motif's chain 5 space, chain 2, coming back to our working motif, we'll work 5 more double crochets in that same chain 7 space. And slip stitch to the first stitch at the beginning of the round to join and fasten off. And so now we have 3 motifs joined together, and each one is joined on one side. So here was our original motif, just like in the chart, and here's one motif joined on one side, and here's another motif joined on one side, and you can see that here. Here's our original, here's this motif joined on one side, and this motif here joined on one side. We're joining 2 points per side. So now we're going to join a 4th motif, and this one's going to be joined on 2 sides. So Working in right hand crochet and working counterclockwise, we'll start here and work around in this direction, and that would be clockwise if you're working in left hand crochet. Okay, we are 4 points away from the end of this motif. You could also do this from the beginning of the motif so that you don't have to count back. It doesn't matter as long as you have enough space to join it on 4 points or 4 chain 5 spaces. And we're going to start joining on this one right here. We've got our 5 double crochets, chain 2, slip stitch to join in this chain 5 space on the adjacent motif. Chain 2, then coming back to our working motif, we'll work 5 more double crochets in the chain 7 space. Notice how I'm setting my work down flat on a surface. This is extremely helpful if you are a beginner to join as you go motifs. Once you're a little more experienced, you can do this in your lap or fold it up, you know, as you're working, but it is extremely helpful to be able to see where you're at in your motifs, and I do highly recommend setting your work down like this as often as possible when you're new to it, or if you're just trying a new motif. I mean, this is a newish motif to me, and it is very helpful to me, even as an advanced crocheter, to set my work down and make sure I know where I'm going. So I single crocheted in the next chain 5 space. And in the next chain 7 space, I'm going to work 5 double crochets. Chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, on the same adjacent motif. Chain 2, and work 5 more double crochets on my working motif in that same chain 7 space. Single crochet in the next chain 5 space, and I'm going to set my work down one more time because I want to show you now that we've joined to this motif here, this adjacent motif, and we're going to do the same thing again, but now working into the next 2 chain 5 spaces on this motif. So we're doing the same thing, but we're joining to a different motif this time. So I'll pick up my work again, and in the next chain 7 space, work 5 double crochets. Chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the next adjacent motif, chain 2, then come back into my working motif and work 5 more double crochets into that same chain 7 space. Single crochet in the next chain 5 space. And then working in the next chain 7 space, work 5 double crochets, and we're going to join with chain 2 and slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the same adjacent motif. Chain 2, and then working in that same chain 7 space on our working motif, we'll work 5 more double crochets and slip stitch to join the motif at the end of the round and fasten off. Okay, so now we've got our 4 motifs joined together. We have our first motif, our second and third motif, each joined on one side, and our fourth motif joined on 2 sides. Next, I'm going to show you how we create our motif B and fill in this negative space that's created in the middle of joining the 4 motifs together. In other words, we'll be doing this one round motif B in the center. All right, let's go over the chart first. So motif B begins with a chain 4 and slip stitch to the 4th chain from your hook to form a ring, chain 3 and double crochet in the ring. Then we're going to chain 5, slip stitch into the 3rd double crochet of the 5 double crochet section on one of the motif A's, chain 5, 2 double crochet cluster back in the ring, chain 5, slip stitch into the next center double crochet of the next set of 5 double crochets on the same adjacent motif A, chain 5, and 2 double crochet cluster back in the ring. Then we're going to repeat that on the next 2 sections on the next motif A, then repeat that on the next 2 sections on the next adjacent motif here, and then repeat it on this motif here, and then slip stitch to join at the beginning of the round and fasten off. So it's all done in one round. Now I want to show you what that looks like in the yarn. So when I was saying those 5 double crochet sections, it's this double crochet section, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And so we're going to be working into the 3rd double crochet or center double crochet of each of those sections. So after I start my motif, it's that 3rd double crochet here that I'm going to slip stitch into, then this one, then this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So now let's get started. We're going to start with a chain 4, slip stitch into the 4th chain from your hook to form a ring, chain 3, and double crochet in the chain 4 ring. Okay, chain 5. Okay, now we're ready to start joining. So what did we say? We were going to start here, and we're going to start here, then do 2 on this motif, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and we'll do a total of 8 at the end of the round. So we've got our chain 5, slip stitch into the center double crochet of this 5 double crochet section here. And I'll set my work down flat as often as possible to help you understand where we are. Then we chain 5, set this all down flat again, and we're going to come back to our motif B, and working in our chain 4 ring, we're going to work 2 double crochet clusters. So it's yarn over your hook, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We now have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on our hook, chain 5. Okay, now we'll work in the next set of 5 double crochets on the same motif, working into that, slip stitching into the 3rd double crochet of the 5 double crochets, which is the center one, chain 5, and 2 double crochet cluster into that same chain 4 ring of our working motif. Okay, so now we've joined. I want to set it down so you can see it but not ruin it. Okay, so we've got the first 2 joins done in our motif B, and we're going to keep going now. So I like to turn the whole work so I'm always working away from myself like this, and we will chain 5 and join in the next center double crochet of the next 5 double crochet section, which happens to be on the next motif now, chain 5, and now working back in our existing motifs, chain 4 ring, yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We now have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on our hook. We've done another 2 double crochet cluster, chain 5. Now working in the next 5 double crochet section on the same motif, we'll slip stitch into that center double crochet, chain 5, and working back into our working motifs, chain 4 ring, we'll work our next set of 2 double crochet cluster. Okay, I'm going to try to set my work down at the end of this round, at the end of this section, so you can see how much more we have. Look at it starting to look like our little flower in the center. Isn't that great? You can really start to see our progress now. So we're going to continue on. All right, so we'll chain 5. And now working in the next motif, we will pick up the next motif and slip stitch into the 3rd center double crochet of the next section of 5 double crochets, chain 5. Then coming back into our working motif, work the next 2 double crochet cluster, chain 5, working in the next set of 5 double crochet sections on the same adjacent motif. We'll slip stitch into the 3rd double crochet, chain 5, then back into our working motif, work the next 2 double crochet cluster. I'm going to set this down again, and you'll see that we've joined into 3 of the 4 motifs so far. Okay, you can really see our progress now. So now we only have 2 more points left to do of the motif B, and they'll be joined into these points here, and you can really start to see the star shape coming together. Chain 5. Slip stitch into the center double crochet of the next set of 5 double crochets, chain 5, and 2 double crochet cluster back into our working motif. If you want some help seeing close-up or really slowed down step-by-step tutorials for any of these stitches, please refer to my Crochet Stitch Encyclopedia playlist. I will post a link in the video description for that as well, and there you can see how to do all of these stitches really slowed down and close up if they are stitches that are new to you or stitches that you need a refresher on. Let's slip stitch into the last center stitch, double crochet of the last set of 5 double crochets, chain 5, and then back in our working motif we'll slip stitch to the first stitch at the beginning of the round to join. Fasten off. Isn't it amazing how that little motif ends up filling up that negative space between the larger motifs and really just magically creates this gorgeous fabric? If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments. There's a link provided in the video description below for where to go to download the pattern for the Leila lace motif runner. And in that pattern, you'll also find information on how to take these 2 motifs to combine them together to make all sorts of other projects as well, from scarves to shawls and so much more. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you in the next video.